And we keep things rolling on this edition of the Sports Cubicle here on WCPT 820 AM Heartland Signal and WSBC 1240 AM Chicago. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I am here with the one and only, the marvelous one, Dan Marver. And the NBA draft has come and gone. There was some interesting maneuvers, some interesting trades, and maybe some generational players that found new homes and will start their journey into basketball immortality, or at least that's what some fan bases are hoping for. That wasn't necessarily the case here in Chicago, as with the 12th overall pick, the Chicago Bulls pick Noah Essengate. And we're going to get into the player comp, the conversation around them. But before we get into that, Marvelous, I want to ask you this, because this is something that has just been bubbling inside me. I don't think just for this season, but the last few years with the Chicago Bulls team. And it's something that I was feeling during the Garpax era. Some organizations are able to find the diamond in the rough at pick 12, 13, 14. Some are even able to find them in the second round. I don't trust this front office to be able to scout and develop a mid to late round talent. I believe in Billy Donovan and his coaching staff to be professional, to get the best out of players, to do their best to try to develop and mold guys into NBA talent. But when it comes to a front office, being able to have that keen eye to find those pieces, to be able to build 7, 8, 9, 10-man rotations when you can't bring in the big-time superstars, I don't trust Arturas Karnisovas or Mark Eversley. I don't trust this Bulls ownership to pick the right people to do that. And the only reason I set up the table for this is there's a good chance Noah Essengate can be really good. He's got the attributes. It is a weird league. It's an ever-changing, evolving league, if you will. But this isn't like watching, at the time, the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Celtics, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Miami Heat, getting players like this. Heck, this isn't even Ryan Poles finding secondary position players in the second round. They have not earned that right. So before we even talk about the talent, my worries about the organization themselves picking this player at 12, I don't have goodwill or any faith in them to get the best out of him. What do you think about, before we even get to the talents that the kid might have, just that as a stigma to the organization?
Yeah, well, he'll be 19 in December. He isn't even one of the 12 record freshmen that were drafted in the first round, including the entire Duke team. Pretty much. But I think that Eversley is lowering expectations. Quote, and this is from Sam Smith, NBA.com. We said it before, but it's worth repeating. We are in transition, Eversley reminded. We took a step back this season to reposition and retool. And while we don't know exactly what next year's roster will look like, we're encouraged by the early progress and direction we are heading. Now he's talking about over the next 18 months of the draft tonight, free agency and financial flexibility in 26. We believe we are setting ourselves up to take meaningful steps forward. Okay. Maybe. So you're saying they don't know what they're doing. It sounds like a lot of platitudes to me, but I mean, I wanted them to take Queen, as I stated last week, and he was picked up immediately by the Pelicans at 13. But I think that this fits their profile of trying to get, this, they call this guy a gangly Frenchman, and I was reminded that the Bulls had a gangly freshman once before named Joakim Noah. And the funny thing is that he went to college at Florida, and guess who his coach was? Billy Donovan. So maybe there's something to that as to this draft of another Noah, so to speak. But in answer to your question, do they know what they're doing? I mean, I don't know, because there's been no progress, and now they're lowering expectations for 25, and then talking about things are going to be better in 26, and maybe we should do a Rip Van Winkle this year.
But Marver, you can hear that from Mark Eversley. You can hear it from Arturas Karnisovas. You can hear it from Jerry or Michael Reinsdorf. Actions speak louder than words. And this team, time in and time out, has chosen profit and has chosen grandstanding than what's better for the organization. This is the same team that's made how many play-in tournaments and has lost to the same team in the same position. Think about what it cost them in this draft, keeping them in that 12 pick range again. There's a reason why this organization feels like it's stuck in mud, because it keeps doing the same thing over and over again. So I can hear the general manager say something that, like, yeah, we all agree with that they're going to take a step back. They need to. They need to get picks. They need to get young stars. They need to develop these stars. But their actions have never shown that. So again, I go back to, and you bring a spotlight to it. Do you trust this front office, who, by the way, just got contract extensions secretively again? So I'm struggling to have any type of, again, not faith in the player, because sometimes players are great in spite of organizations and front offices. And this team might get lucky when it comes to a development and scouting with how good Matas might be. But again, is it just because he's that good? He would have done that in Charlotte, in New Orleans, or here in Chicago. So I think as the draft went on, I also realized, because you saw what the Pelicans did. They tried to go get their guy. They made a big move. They've made big moves. At any point, did you believe the Bulls were going to move up in this draft? At any point, did you believe this front office is creative enough to come up with a trade scenario, to be involved in some of these moves that put your franchise in a better place, not necessarily for next year, but for years down the road? At any moment watching that draft, did you feel like you were going to see breaking news? You were going to see Shams say the Bulls had made a trade?
No, I didn't feel that was going to happen at all. And both from the pre-draft signals all the way up to the day of the draft, it seemed like 12 was going to be 12 to me, and and that's the way it ended up. And I mean, he is the only person that's younger than he is that was drafted as Flag. So he's a work in progress, and he did have an opportunity to play against the Portland Trailblazers in the preseason, and he claims to have scored 20 points. I don't see a box score, but I guess his shooting isn't very good, but he likes to say that he can finish close to the rim. But I'd like to see somebody that can shoot better than 26% from 3-point, and that's what he does. So, and like I say, work in progress, and I don't think they were going to move up. I don't think they had any intention of making a trade of any kind. But you're talking about bench. I mean, that was what we talked about it last week. Indiana and Oklahoma City, the bench was key. I mean, in some games, McConnell had double-digit points, almost 20, and the same went for people from the Oklahoma bench. So the Bulls aren't very deep is another part of the problem. So it looks like their plan, if there's a plan, is is to have people in the mold of maybe Buzelis, who's a 6'10" forward, and now we have somebody else who is really not a center, who's big and has a 7-foot plus wingspan. So that's the plan. If there's a plan to have players like that, and maybe they're going to be an up tempo is the idea. And so they won't need to worry about shooting 3-pointers.
I'm glad you bring up the attributes, because that's what this team has done, though. Dalen Terry, Patrick Williams, and now it seems like Noah Essingen, even with Matas, it's all about like these attributes of they're long, they have huge wingspans, they can do X, but can they play basketball? Can they mature into NBA All-Stars? Professional basketball players in the highest level. I think, obviously, I honestly believe Matas Buzelis has a really good chance of being a really good NBA player. You can't tell me Dalen Terry is not a bust, a first-round bust. Seems like a nice enough kid. Really does, especially on social media. And Patrick Williams has had all the opportunity in the world, injuries aside, has been given the ball to be the man. And teams that get good, like, let's say, Oklahoma City, Indiana, they make trades at the right time. They make investments in their team at the right time. When Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso were on this team at their highest of powers, at the peak of what their value was, this team dribbled down their pants 3 separate times. And that's why they don't end up like OKC, Indiana, and some of these other organizations that are constantly in it because they had no assets to give them. And you're now playing catch-up. And in a situation we saw Kevin Durant get traded. Vucevic is a nice dump deal for people to get rid of a big contract, and he's still on the roster. this front office has shown themselves time and time again.
I mean, it seems like the whole play-in idea was built with the Bulls in mind.
It does.
In a way, the Bulls would be better off if they just taken the top 8 teams like they used to, because it showed their flaws have been exposed in the postseason. And I mean, Queen aside, I mean, there were other big people like Sorber and Behringer and Newell, and there were a lot of people like the Illinois kid. Yaka, yeah, give it to me. Yaka Jonas.
Oh, Noah Essengay.
Yeah, and so they took Noah instead. Well, it's better. I can't pronounce Yaka Jonas, the Illinois kids, anyway. And then Murray Boyles, Carter Bryant. There were a lot of people that were ready to contribute. That more so than what it seems like the case will be for the new Noah. So, but we'll give him a chance. Like I say. 19 in December, so yeah, it should be very interesting.
And I just want to bring this up too, because we've mentioned a bunch of times here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. We are here on WCPT 820 AM Heartland Signal and WSBC 1240 AM Chicago. Make sure you're checking us out over on the YouTube channel at the Sports Cubicle if you want to see the video version of each and every one of our segments. The Houston Rockets get Kevin Durant, as the Suns get Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the number 10 overall, number 59 overall pick, the two 2026 second-round picks, a 2030 second-round pick, and a 2032 second-round pick. Now, it's a lot of second-round picks. It's a lot of picks that were just made. Point being, though, is these type of trades are how you are able to re-bolster your organization, your franchise. And this team did not do it, and there's no chance for them to do it again. Who on this roster right now is going to give the Bulls a chance to revamp any type of accumulation in draft picks? There's nobody. And they don't have good poker faces because everybody knew they had to get rid of DeRozan. Everybody knew they had to get rid of Levine. And now everybody knows they have to get rid of Vooch. Yeah. So nobody's going to do them any favors.
And they think Ball has some value too, of course.
Which I think to some people, Ball might have some value. And to a good organization, they will get the value out of him. Do you trust this organization to get the best value for him?
I don't know. The funniest quote from Eversley that I heard is, what I take away from Indiana is their style of play. They continue to come at you over and over. They play fast in spite of the score at what quarter it is. That's the kind of how we played this year. Really?
We're watching totally different basketball, my friend.
He says they got a bunch of players that can play both sides of the floor. Indiana, that is. It's exactly what we want to build here in Chicago. Players who are versatile. Okay, well, they're versatile, but they can't score any points. I mean,
yeah. Who's the Tyrese Halliburton of the Chicago Bulls?
I mean, this kid isn't even Siakam.
Who's Siakam of it? Exactly. I'm so glad you brought this up, Marver, but we could spend all day on this. I want to transition a little bit to the Durant trade, but also NBA free agency. Yeah. It's not going to be the craziest of I think, NBA free agency. There's going to be some moves. We saw the big one.
It's funny. Last time you were talking about San Antonio and Dallas and Texas being hot properties. Well, Houston was number 2, and now they get Durant. So, it looks like maybe a 3-way race in Texas now.
The NBA, especially the Western Conference, when you have that triangle of the Dallas Mavericks, San Antonio Spurs, and Houston Rockets competitive, it's always, at least for me, because it reminds me of my childhood, is great basketball. And this NBA free agency is going to be really interesting because there are a lot of teams going into next year with guaranteed bad called seasons, specifically the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. Their superstars are gone with Achilles injuries, and there's going to be plenty of new faces in new places. I think this NBA free agency period is going to be much more of a stabilization for teams. And if we stay local here in Chicago, it's going to be minimum contracts, it's going to be minimum effort, and it's going to be transitional players. When you have an offseason like that, a free agency like that, I don't think it's great for the league, and I don't think it's great for this team in particular here in Chicago, but I do think trades like Durant are exciting, and it is something that makes the NBA very much more different than some of the other sports where they have these players, these superstars that are constantly moving. With free agency looming and these trades being made every single hour now, it seems like Shams Charania has something breaking. What are your vibes about the free agency season, either big picture and more specifically here in Chicago?
Are we going to spend any money to get anybody? I mean, that's my concern. I mean, it seems to me as though they really haven't done that in the past, and there's nothing to say that they're going to do that in the future. So I don't think they're going to be that active in the free agent market. But there are some good players that they should think about. So I don't know what they're going to do. I would say that they really should consider looking at some of the free agents. But
well, we have to remember Josh Giddey is going to be a restricted free agent, and I think that if you're looking for the real Bulls story is $30 million worth of Josh Giddey. That's where this team is right now. That is kind of the moment that everybody's really worried about is Josh Giddey. What do you think about Giddey?
Well, he's also young. He's another project.
Hey,
and so we're hoping that he's going to develop, and he's another big wingspan and the whole 9 yards. But I think that we should look more seriously at the free agents, because I think they need to have an experienced player with all this youth. So I think that that's something that they should look at. They should look at free agents, and I don't know and that's going to be coming up yet. I mean, there's still a lot of time to determine what's going to happen with free agency. So I would expect that look at Fred Van Vliet would be nice. Austin Reeves.
But don't you think like someone like Van Vliet is going to re-sign with Houston now that he's got the Durant deal? But like, if you're the Bulls, you're obviously not going to have enough cap space to do most of these things, right? Like, you're going to end up over the salary cap. So let's just assume that they have to kind of do minimum contracts and they have to make hard decisions on this roster. Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu? Who are you picking? Because that's the question right there. Is like right now, if you're looking at value and who you're going to pay, you're not going to pay both guards.
White.
It's White. He's the more talented of the two. The cheaper of the two is going to be Dosunmu, so there's going to be that flexibility. And what kind of trade value do you get from Kobe White? And then it always circles back to, is Josh Giddey a top 25 player in the NBA? He can do cool stuff. He can have we saw him have big moments, but this is where this Bulls team is. This is where a lot of teams in the NBA are. They put themselves in these bad positions with these bad contracts, and they have to overpay and overvalue some of these talents. So I don't know, Marver. It's going to be really interesting, but I thought I wanted to run that by you. Is more interestingly not who they might sign, but who they have to keep in-house. So I guess before we let you go, so you said Kobe White over Ayo Dosunmu, and does Dan Marver give Josh Giddey the contract extension? And then B, will the Bulls give him the contract extension?
I think they're committed to him, honestly, based upon the fact that they made that trade. And, that obviously I would have almost rather had Caruso, but that's another subject.
It's plenty of moments the Bulls could have done something where the timelines are better. But we want to know your thoughts. How do you think the NBA free agency is going to play for your favorite team? How do you think it's going to end up for the Chicago Bulls? Who will they keep? Who will they get rid of? And what did you think about the NBA draft? Cooper Flag, is he legit? What about Harper? Did your team get the player that you wanted? We know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're following us on the YouTube channel at The Sports Cubicle. Check us out over at the SoundCloud on WCPT 820 AM or at heartlandsignal.com. For the marvelous one, Dan Marver, I'm Mike Mercado. We keep things rolling here on The Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 AM, Heartland Signal, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago.